All right, I am excited today to have a very special guest. It is none other than General Kenobi. He does business development and marketing at Demand Pool, which is doing some incredible stuff for Bitcoin mining that we're going to break down in today's discussion. Kenobi, welcome to the channel, my friend.
Ian, thank you very much. It's an honor. Love to be here.
Yes, I have been very keen to do this conversation. I've covered some of the Bitcoin mining related topics, this idea of centralization risk and pools and how they interact with miners. So we're gonna get into all that. But as I often like to do, for people who may not be familiar with some of your background and work, how'd you get into the Bitcoin space? I'm always curious to know.
Yeah, so I got into the Bitcoin space through the shitcoin gate. Let's put it that way, right? Many of us have been through there. I did some shitcoining. I didn't know better. I was studying economics. Bitcoin and crypto seemed risky, but I was like, if I'm going to risk it, might as well just go crazy. That's kind of the easy way to put it. But instead of just doing trading like most people, I actually started like reading the technical details about that and like what is cryptography, why does it work, how does it work, and all of that. So that's how I ended up slowly falling down the blockchain, not Bitcoin rabbit hole, or like let's say pill that the first pill that you take, right? And I was lucky enough that by chance I managed to, while doing my studies, undergrad economics, I did a summer internship at a big Bitcoin mining company, and there I had a lot of time to just delve deep and be in the belly of the beast, if you might, right? And really take it in and learn a lot. And still remember, I was learning about how proof of work actually works and why Bitcoin is the only one that truly uses it. And the day that it clicked for me, never came back. Like just never came, like that's it. It was a next chapter of my life had started. Or actually, you could even say my life had started. Because like that moment when you take the orange pill, it's like, okay, where have I been the past X amount of years? Like, what have I been doing, you know? And since then, I kept working with them for a year. So I left college a bit to the side, kind of ignored it, and kept working with a big Bitcoin miner for about 1 year. And so that was summer 2021, I joined them. I left by end of summer 2022. So at that point, the price was already deep in the bear market territory. Still had a bit of ways to go, but a bit of a year and a half later, after going through most of my college, so I was almost done with my economics, they hit me up again, offered me a position. I joined back in. And after that, once I finished college, I decided to move on to better things, different things. I think it's better because like Stratum V2 is pretty cool, and that's what we'll be talking about now. And so yeah, that's how I get to be here, being here in front of you, talking about Stratum V2.
Love it, man. Yeah, the before Bitcoin era and the after Bitcoin era, a lot of us feel that kind of point very, very distinctly in our timelines. But that's awesome. And, as you said, it's a nice segue into kind of my next question, which is, and this will help frame up why demand pool is so interesting, at least in my humble opinion, and I'm sure yours as well. Talk to us a little bit about the current state of mining. We've seen some people say, oh, these concerns are overblown in terms of mining pool, centralization risk. Like, break it down. Like, what is going on? Should people be worried? And that'll kind of help frame our discussion for Stratum V2 and onward.
So that's a very good question. And I think there's a couple of ways to answer it because, in a way, don't need to be too worried because the true attacks on Bitcoin are not coming through mining. Like the most they can do is a chain reorg, in which case they get to spend again their coins. Like, yoo-hoo. And at this point, it's been long since it was worth it. Like you need to have such a huge UTXO for it to make sense that it just doesn't make that only Michael Saylor would be able to do it, and I don't think he would do it, right? So first of all, you have to contextualize it in that way, right? Compared to the rest of attacks that could happen in Bitcoin, right? So first of all, it's not too serious, but it is serious enough that we need to address it. And especially looking at the trend, because right, one data point doesn't tell you anything. But when you look at the trend, that's when you can extrapolate and see where it's going and say, oh no, no, that's not why Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin, right? And basically, the problem right now lies basically in the pools. So in 2000, around 11, I think, GPU mining was already fully established as the main way to mine Bitcoin. CPUs were out of the way. FPGAs were kind of hitting the market. ASICs were still 2 years far, so into the future. And the software that Satoshi Nakamoto had shipped to everyone was already starting to show its limitations, especially in regards to scale. So I think it was the guys at Slush. So the guys now at Brains. The Slush pool was acquired by Brains. Since they were the first mining pool, they were at that point, spearheading. They were like, a state-of-the-art technology at that point. And they said, okay, we need to rework this. Instead of just getting block templates from a pool, we need to create a new protocol to communicate between the pool and the miners. And they created Stratum v1. And from what I've heard and from the stories, they kind of did a quick job because it started to become a pressing issue. And they got it out in a good enough way. Like it was good enough. So much good enough that everyone ended up applying it. But the problem is, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't great. It was just good enough. And one of the things that they kind of like hand wavy kind of changed in order to potentially make their lives easier is instead of the miner choosing what goes into a block and what the block looks like that they will mine, it will be the pool.
Mm.
So now instead of having, let's say, 100,000 miners, so different entities, not just ASICs, and each of them needs to have a node to mine, and then perhaps they connect to a pool or perhaps they don't. That's a different story, right? You can solo mine. We suddenly move to 100,000 entities, or nowadays more like 2 million potentially, mining, but only 8 nodes deciding 95% of the transactions that go into the block. So that's where it's suddenly, even though you could say, oh, they're different, foundries in the US and Antpool is in China. Yes, okay. That's also part of the reason why I'm saying it's not so important yet. But why did I talk about the trends? We're seeing that these two pools, they already control like 60% of the hash rate between the two of them. And 2 months ago, they only control like short of 50. Already 2 data points. That's already bad enough. And 3 years ago, Foundry, no, 4 years ago, Foundry didn't exist. So, you get those 3 data points, you plot it out, and yes, of course, it's gonna be, how's it called, a logistical curve or like not a logarithmic, like that goes forever, but
Right.
at some point it's gonna reach, but it's getting to a point where it's getting worrisome.
Right.
And especially the fact that they have so much power in deciding what goes into the blockchain. So that's why people should be concerned because Bitcoin is decentralized not because Satoshi Nakamoto felt like it. It's decentralized because it's the only way to make sure that there's no central authority that can censor or, censor basically transactions or print it. But we care here about the censorship. So that's the main issue.
Right. And, I'll often hear people maybe say, well, look, like a miner can, it's pretty easy for them to change their config file or whatever and like point their hash rate at a different mining pool. I like that feels a little like cope because as you're rightly pointing out, the trend is what matters. And, the trend is showing, as you're saying, this alarming trajectory towards a more centralized state. And I also think a lot of people don't fully grasp that what you just said, which is, hey, if I'm an entity of some kind, maybe I'm an individual participating in some sort of cloud mining service or like whatever it is. Yeah, a lot of people I don't think realize that you're just sort of almost dumbly contributing hash rate to the pool, and it is the pool making all of the specific decisions around what transactions go into the block. And when we talk about like enforcement points, I think that's really where this issue comes in. Like, good luck going after the 2 million entities, as you said.
Exactly.
Better luck going after the eight or so. And yeah, sure, maybe the U.S. and China's sort of differences help, but that doesn't sit particularly
Yeah,
comfortably with me.
if that's what we're relying on,
Yeah,
really, is that where we got to?
yeah,
And uh, on what you were just saying, it's funny because I've been on both sides. I was part of a big miner, and I
yeah.
can tell you that unlike in the past, in 2014, we actually had a situation similar to this one where Ghash.io was a pool that ended up having close to 45% of the hash rate. And everyone started panicking. Oh no, 51% attack. Of course, Bitcoin mining was much more, Bitcoin in general was much more young at that point. And there was a whole thing. And I think it was 5 months later, it was dead. So that, yes, of course, miners can change where they point to if they are allowed to. But when
Right.
you're a big miner with a board of directors, shareholders, regulators, auditors, board of this, board of that, this of that, this of that, suddenly even changing a pool becomes a
Yeah.
whole nightmare. It's only just typing a few things, right? It's just, hey, copy paste this URL here, right? But it isn't. So, and nowadays, the reason why Antpool, but especially Foundry are becoming so big, it's because of all this extra infrastructure, which, hey, is very positive for some things, channeling capital into Bitcoin mining and also like all of the ancillary services and heat reuse. Great stuff. Like Marathon, CleanSpark, Riot, they're doing a great job on that. But, every sword has two edges,
Right.
every coin has two sides. And thankfully, in this case, we can actually dull one side of the sword with Stratum V2.
Yeah.
So,
Great, great, great segue. So tell us a little bit more about Stratum V2, how it works and how it solves at least the portion of what you're talking about. And then, maybe connect that also with like what is demand pool? What makes demand pool unique?
yeah. So after Stratum V1 launched in, well, Stratum at that point, right? Launched in 2011. That was basically the go-to, and there was no reason to really think about anything else. I mean, yes, people were like, from a technical perspective, it could be better, and that's why some people say that Stratum V2 started around 2012 or so, but it truly isn't true. Like nobody really was caring about this until 2018. What happened in 2018? Well, the block size wars came to an end, and we suddenly realized that, there's a back door in all of our ASICs, and not just that, but these big mining entities, they have a lot of power, and they can, if they want to, they can do stuff we don't want. Let's put it that way. Bad for us, good for them, right? Because good and bad, that's a whole discussion. But hey, they can do stuff we don't want to that is not part of how the Bitcoin blockchain was envisioned and why Bitcoin mining happens. That's why I think it was in the same year, Matt Corallo proposed Better Hash, which was let's say, a upgrade to Stratum V1, but for certain reasons, it just didn't click. It didn't work. It was missing a few features. But from there, we already had not only a reason, but also kind of a framework on how the next step should look like. And that's why in 2020, the SRI, Stratum Reference Implementation, was created. And lots of open source coders, I think it was like 15 from companies like Brains, and also our CTO, Filippo, they started actually coding the ideas of Stratum V2. And basically, what it does, it's kind of very simple and it's kind of like a no-brainer. But of course, 2011, Bitcoin had only existed for 2 years, right? Like we cannot blame them for anything, right? And it would be stupid to do it. But now with 14 years, well, 11 years at that point of time, they thought, hey guys, perhaps the communication between a machine, the pool, and a machine, the ASIC or the proxy for the data center, should not be in JSONs, clear text JSONs. That's the equivalent of sending emails. Perhaps it should be binary, first of all, much more efficient from a data transmission perspective, and also encrypted so that there's no man in the middle attacks. Because famously enough, it's never been confirmed, but the rumors are numerous of the fact that people could intercept your hash rate, your packets, the packets you're sending to people, and redirect one out of every 20 or one out of every 10. This way, they go undetected. You don't know if it was the variance of the pool or whatever,
Yeah.
and you're getting 10% of a big operations revenue for doing
Interesting.
nothing. 2 minutes of code, right? So yeah, that's a problem. But if it's encrypted and binary, also, by the way, that helps against censorship from ISPs and all of that, right? They can, because right now they can very clearly see, oh, wow, that's Bitcoin mining. If China wants to ban it, just, it's a very easy to ban that.
Yeah.
But these type of binary encrypted messages, what is it? Well, could be WhatsApps, right? It could be or WeChat messages, right?
Yeah.
We don't know, right? So that's first step. But then also, let's say the main reason on how Stratum V2 improves the situation with decentralization, or better said, how Stratum V2 decentralizes Bitcoin mining, is that it gives back the power of block template generation, of creating the blocks to the miners. So it's not going to be the pools anymore doing the block template generation. It's going to be the miners. So we will be back. In a way, we're taking a step forward so we can take two steps back because we want to go back to 2010, to a certain degree where it was more decentralized. So those are like the two main benefits, like enterprise grade encryption and, a protocol of communications. And then also, hey, decentralizing mining and, well, giving the power back to the miners.
This video is made possible by Bitcoin trading cards, and I am pumped to have them as the first sponsor on my channel. I met Aladdin and the team back at Pacific Bitcoin 2022, and I'm not gonna lie, at the time I thought, okay, cool, a quirky little Bitcoin project, but little could I have imagined at the time how this project would capture imaginations. I've personally used these to orange pill people that I care about in my life. The art is stunning and features Bitcoin artists all around the world. You get high quality Bitcoin education on topics like economics and freedom as part of that, which makes this, as you can imagine, a really special project for me. And I'm not gonna lie, it makes you want to collect these. The community behind this is also truly insane. And I think they have a real shot at bringing Bitcoin to the mainstream. So if you're curious to check them out, head over to btc-tc.com where you can find the different series they've launched. And hey, if you do end up snagging some cards, you'll also get some Bitcoin rewards back on your purchase, powered by Jolts. Here's to ripping packs and stacking sats. Super interesting. Yeah, I don't think I had realized that first dimension as much, right? And so kind of bleeding into another topic I was curious about is like, what is then the like sales pitch to miners? I mean, okay, for example, perhaps some operators say like, whatever, I just want the template that like maximizes profitability or, whatever kind of heuristics I want to use. What is like the pitch to a miner as to why they would want to adopt, something like Stratum V2?
Well, what we're doing, first of all, why are we launching demand pool? Because no other miner pool was willing to launch a Stratum V2 pool. So our CEO and co-founder, Alejandro, he's been in the industry for like 12 years, like in the pool industry, not even just in the industry, like very specific, right? And he was like, we got to do it. If I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. So like Satoshi Nakamoto jumped into action, he as well, he said, hey guys, we got to do it. And he had a very clear line, only Stratum V2. We're not going to touch Stratum V1. This basically forces us to go in this direction of decentralization. And the pitch that we give miners is, first of all, that one, decentralization, because to a certain degree, the more pool mining gets centralized, the more we're destroying the value of Bitcoin. So in a way, it's in the interest of the miners, the people that are the most invested into Bitcoin mining, into Bitcoin in general, to preserve the value of Bitcoin, right? But of course, values are only for the hippies, let's say, and miners, if anything, they're like cowboys, and they want to, where does the rubber meet the road, right?
Yeah.
And in that sense, on our way to decentralized pooled mining, we also discovered another boogeyman, and that's FPPS mining, right? Ocean also discovered the same thing. That's why we're kind of saying the same things. We're two different people, two different entities finding the same enemy independently. Perhaps, we know who the enemy is now. And the main thing is we go to them and we say, hey, FPPS is kind of charging you more fees.
And break that down for people that are not familiar with different payout methods from pools. Maybe break that down quickly.
Okay, so basically, miners, they hash all the time, trillions of attempts, but they don't send all of them to the pool because if they sent all of them, the pool would just be getting quintillions of messages and the bandwidth would be incredible anyway. So what they do is they apply the same difficulty level of the Bitcoin network, but they make it much lower and specific to different miners so that they send one correct attempt or one hash every, let's say, 5 seconds. So then you take these hashes and you call them shares. Because they're your share of the pie, so to speak, once you find a block, right? And at first we had PPLNS, so pay per last n shares. So when the moment you find a block, you look backwards at the amount of shares that people have. You multiply the shares by the difficulty that they were mined at. So for example, if someone with a lot of hash rate sends 2 exahash, sends only 1 share every 5 seconds, and you only have one miner, and you also send 1 share every 5 seconds, they're not the same, right? Because these guys, they have much more. So they're weighted on the difficulty because we're going to give them a much higher difficulty. Not so high as the Bitcoin blockchain, because at that point we would only be getting one every 10 minutes for the entire network worths. But we put it high so we receive one every 5 seconds. Then we weigh it, we do a weighted average, and that's how we distribute the shares. But then around, I think it was 2017 or 16, I think. Don't trust me on that one. Don't trust verify. FPPS started to roll out, and it was a shift in paradigm because instead of waiting for a block to appear and therefore the pool and the miner kind of sharing on the risk and the variance, now the pool kind of provided an insurance product to the miner, and it said, we are going to pay you out the expected value of your hash rate every day. You send us your shares, your attempts. With that, we calculate how much hash rate you have. And then with a very simple equation, at first it was very simple, we will look at what your hash rate is worth a day. So if there's this many Bitcoins and this much hash rate, and you were 2% of it, Bitcoins released per day, right? Then you should be getting 2% of the rewards, right? Even if we didn't find any block, we're still going to pay you out. So that's basically an insurance product, right? So they started doing that, and with a very simple equation, but with time, they realized, oh wow, we have got into the insurance business without noticing it, and the capital requirements for that, so the amount of treasury you need to have that in order to not go bankrupt, are huge, and the capital costs are huge. So you cannot maintain the pool with 2% anymore. So they started modifying and adding quirks and extras, and hey, but we're going to take away the 10 most profitable, but also the 10 least profitable blocks. Or from the transactions of that day, we're going to shave this and shave that, right? And they started doing these modifications. Also, all of the different pools in different ways. So now suddenly the same thing, now an apple, we used to call it an apple. Now he's selling you a banana, he's selling you, a mango. You're still selling apples, but we all call it apple, right? And still, this apple, you didn't want to have an apple. You wanted to have a steak. That's PPLNS. And now you're selling fruits instead of selling meat, right? So that's the situation where we're in right now. And they started adding all of these extras because this way it was harder to verify your payouts, like how much you're getting paid, if you're getting paid what you should be getting paid by the pool. And this way they could start having, like in exchanges, they have the spread, right? Binance advertises, oh, super low fees, but then the spread is a bit higher. They still need to make money somehow, right? And in a way, they started to do the same. And that's why in the latest report on PPLNS versus FPPS, we see that PPLNS paid 10% more, even though most of these miners, they have like pools, they have 2 to 4% fees, tops, 4%. So what's that extra 6% in difference? 6 to 10% difference, right? Like, what is happening here, right?
Wow.
So that's the other boogeyman that we found. And that's a very good sales pitch for miners because we're basically telling them, look, you're paying for an insurance product. You don't need to.
Yeah.
We can put more money in your pocket while also increasing the security of your operations, while also decentralizing Bitcoin mining. It's like, what is there not to love, right? So yeah, so that's the
Love that.
gist.
No, super, super helpful. And even just having the history of those different kind of payout structures. And yeah, I actually had like no idea the degree to which some of these extra little things, but as you explain it as an insurance product, it makes a ton of sense. So where are you guys right now in terms of demand pool? Where are you in that journey? And what is going to be available? What is available? Talk folks through maybe the trajectory there.
Yeah. So Demand Pool was officially launched last year, like about a year ago, around these dates, more or less. And since then, we've been working. I joined the team 3 months ago to start helping out. And operations wise, I cannot say much because I also don't know much because it's mostly the coders doing their coding thing. And I don't speak programming. But I know that we're going to be launching this year. And once we launch, we're going to launch in full force. That's what we're hoping for. And we'll notify you. Like, I'm going to do the plug here. I bet you're going to ask me later, oh, where can
Yeah.
we find you? You can find us on, like, if you're interested in hearing more about this or keeping in touch with us, in Twitter we have at demand, so like the demand and supply, demand underscore pool. That will be the best place to find us. And otherwise, our website is dmnd.org. So taking away the vowels, demand.org. That will be our website. You can find us there. So yeah, I can't say much right now at this point, mainly because I don't know much of what is going on, but also because I don't have clarity yet on when it's going to happen. So, but yeah, that's where you can find us to know more. But we're hoping to launch this year.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I mean, this is super important work, right? Like, for anyone listening too, maybe in summary, right? Obviously, if someone listening has any interest in mining whatsoever or any stake in mining operations, definitely keep tabs on what Demand Pool is doing. This is an absolutely critical initiative. But even for someone listening who, hey, this is all fascinating, but, maybe I'm personally not going to, and you've hit on it a little bit, but just in summary, like, what does this mean for even just the average Bitcoiner, average hodler, average user? Like, what are some of the benefits that all of this brings? Just to kind of close this out here.
Well, in a way, I feel like we're like one of those storm barriers that they put on the sea in front of beaches and in front of, like, especially in the Netherlands, right? They have these like huge dams, but they're like reverse dams. I don't know how the name is right now. They're not useful until they are, right? Until the wave suddenly appears and you thank God that it was there. It didn't hit directly your house, right? So I think that's the main benefit of Stratum V2, the fact that we are getting in front of the problem and acting now instead of just waiting until it's centralized and then, oh no, we have to now start coding Stratum V2 because now it's centralized, right? So I think that would be the main benefit, apart from the fact that, well, with Stratum V2, well, fun fact, let's put it that way. Most miners, if not 99.9% of them, don't even have a node. Like,
Which is
perhaps personally they do,
crazy.
but for their operations, they don't have a node. They don't even need to download the blockchain. They don't even need to look at it, right? Because it's the pool sending all of the information. They're just mercenaries, right? You were saying before, right? They're just sharing their compute or whatever. Lately, I'm calling them mercenaries or compute providers. They're not even miners. So with Stratum V2, we're actually going to start installing more nodes, full nodes, in data centers, mining data centers, in small operations, big operations, all types of operations. And I think that's great because we're going to increase the amount of nodes that there are in the world. And also, these nodes will be mining. So in a way, it will be like what Satoshi Nakamoto said, one CPU, one vote, in a way, right? It's like one node, one block provider, let's say. I don't know.
Yep.
So that will be like a general benefit for the network as a whole. If you're just a hodler, the fact that we're kind of like shielding you from an incoming wave, so to speak, an incoming tsunami. And then for people that are interested on also reaching out and they're like, okay, I don't just want to look at your website. Okay, beautiful website, great. Well, actually, our website right now is we're working on the new website. Right now, it's just like coming soon or something like that. It's very, very simple. But if you want to reach out to us, my email would be general.kenobi, like you see on the screen with a dot in between, at dmnd, so demand, but without the vowels, .org. So general.kenobi at demand.org. And yeah, we'll be happy to like send me any. I wanna know how to get in here. And the moment we launch or we get ready to launch, we'll let them know and send them an email and tell them, hey, if you want to decentralize Bitcoin mining, we're here to help you.
Amazing. Kenobi, this was an absolute pleasure and also very insightful. Have covered these topics, as I've mentioned in past videos, but never to this degree of depth. So thank you for bringing your many years of experience. And yeah, we'll have all the kind of links and everything linked in the description down below, and we'll put it up on the editing here when the video goes out. But Kenobi, thanks for taking the time to come on the channel. We will have to do it again very soon. But for everyone, definitely go check out the great work that Demand Pool is doing. I'm so excited and grateful for the work that you guys are doing in protecting the network. So we'll have to do it again sometime soon.
Thank you. Likewise.